Welcome to Innovate, presents Entrepreneurs in Tech. Today, we are honored and delighted to have our guest, Dave Crane, who is not just an entrepreneur, a world renowned speaker, an award winner, and a CEO of Speak on Stage, and a mentor to everybody, from athletes to celebrities to politicians to everybody that you could think of. He mentored and worked with, and he's a coach also at Dave Crane Global Speaker Academy. And he is live with us here from Dubai. Dave, welcome to Entrepreneurs in Tech. If you don't mind, if you don't know who Dave is, you must be living under a rock for a long time. Dave Crane, please give us an introduction, a bit about your background and expertise.
Okay, Bob, it's a complete pleasure to be here. Thank you so much for inviting
Likewise.
me to participate. It's really difficult to say who I am and what I do because I wear different hats for different things. Plus, also, when you're as old as me and I've got a little bit more grey hair than you, one of the things that comes through is you can only read life backwards. So if you look at it, you go, "Oh, gosh, we did that." I'll give you an example. Yesterday, I bumped into a friend of mine who I've not seen for 30 years. I've only ever met him once, and I met him for about 8 hours. And we took part in a TV show called Blind Date, which is like the dating game. 30 years ago. It was live on British TV. It was on the first reality TV shows, and it was in those days you only had four channels in the UK. So Christmas Day, I won that show. We got on like a house on fire. We all did like a house on fire, and we stayed in contact with social media. He came to Dubai for the first time with his wife yesterday. I came across to meet him for a coffee, and we spilled the beans and told our stories and connected and so on. And one of the things that came out of it was a really interesting article that, out like serendipity, somebody sent me an article about Blind Date, the TV show, and it was written in the Daily Mail, I think, in the UK, which is one of their national newspapers, saying the stars of that show, where are they now? And it showed some people had gone on to do, recording contracts or with being a stand-up comedian and stuff. I left the UK about 6 months after I was on the show. I didn't get the break I wanted. I was a BBC journalist at the time, and I tried to get a TV show or work in the TV industry. Couldn't get anything, so I left and moved to Dubai. And one thing that we agreed was the three. Even if the press decided to catch up with us and say, "You guys, what's happened in 30 years?" Neither of us was prepared to tell anything that we shared around that coffee table to the press. Doesn't matter what was offered, because 30 years later, your integrity really matters, and
Oh,
you've
absolutely.
got to be able to sleep at night. So, in a very quick way of saying it, my background's in radio and TV. I worked very hard as a journalist when I was in the UK. Never got my break. I won talent competitions in Scotland. I won the equivalent of America's Got Talent when I was about 11 years old, and I did lots of different things like that. Studied to be a lawyer, hated it, dropped out, worked for the BBC, didn't get the break I wanted, and eventually, after going on that TV show, I said, you know what? I don't think anything was going to come for me in this country. I'm going to seek my fortune and travel around the world. And my girlfriend at the time said, have you considered going to Dubai? And I went, ooh, Dubai, Middle East. I'm sure it's not going to be a good idea. It's dangerous and I can't do things. She said, go to Dubai. So a job offer came up. I went to an agency for DJs. I was kind of part-time DJ at the time, and they said, "Look, we can get you a job in Dubai in 3 days if you take it now." After going for the interview, and that meant leaving all my family, my friends, my girlfriend, everybody behind in 3 days' time. And they all said go. And I hope it wasn't because they hated me, but they could see how kind of lost I was, that I wasn't getting the break I needed. So I arrived in Dubai, and I had the opportunity to do everything I'd ever wanted to do. So when I arrived, I was like a Ryan Seacrest because my background was in radio and TV. I'd never had the chance to prove who I was. Dubai was just emerging as a market, and they're placing themselves on a global scale. And so I got to work with James Brown and Enrique Iglesias and the Spice Girls. I got to host the equivalent of a Super Bowl, which is the Emirates Airline Dubai Rugby Sevens, for 20 years, going in with a microphone in front of like 50,000 to 100,000 drunken people with like 200 million watching at home. And I got to be one of the top radio guys. I got a chance to try everything. But then I got to a point where And it sounds really strange. After about 10 years of being like the most recognizable, I'll say inverted commas, celebrity, because it's like famous in Dubai is like famous in Vegas. You know when somebody's famous in Vegas, but you've never heard of them anywhere else? That was me. So I'd been there for about 10 years. I'd done really well. But the reason I'd done it in the first place was really because I'd wanted to prove to the UK, you missed out. I really wanted to say, let's get this going. And so once I'd done it, after 10 years, it had changed. So I was fighting to stay at the top of my game. And I didn't really want to play the game anymore. I'd proven to myself, nobody else was watching, it was just expected for me to do this. So at the top of where I was, I walked away with immediate effect. I just went, you know what? I do all the big corporate gigs. I'll carry on doing them, but I just won't be a celebrity anymore. And it happened overnight, literally by walking away from radio. I was never invited to open another restaurant or on anybody's guest list, and I was fine with that. But here's the challenge, and I'm sure this will knock on for a lot of entrepreneurs because we're in a world now where social media is so dominant. When I left radio, there was no social media. Otherwise, I would have left it and I would have had other branding to fall back on. You're either in
Yes.
radio or you're not in radio, and then you're invisible. And so I became invisible, and I realized it was about 7, 8 months ago. Um, I realized there's a thing called the Red Queen's hypothesis. Do you know about the Red Queen's hypothesis?
No. Red Queen's hypothesis. No.
So the Red Queen from Alice in Wonderland, Lewis Carroll's famous fairy tale in the Johnny Depp movies, says you've got to keep moving to stay where you are. Now, that sounds like another weird thing she'd say, but what it means in real life is if you're on a treadmill, you got to keep running at speed. Otherwise, you fall off a treadmill. And so, if you step away from the limelight and then decide to go back in because, it was easy, the whole world has moved around you. Other things are more important. You're not famous, you're not even needed because there's an ecosystem that's moved on. So you kind of have to find a way of reinventing yourself. And so that's kind of where I've been for the last 2 years. But the me that's reinvented themselves um, is it's a very interesting angle for me because I'm an old fart. So therefore, I don't have to prove to anybody who I am. But it's just kind of like I'm finding my new career is like that scene from John Wick. You've seen the movie John Wick? You know the
Yes,
bit
sir.
where his house gets blown up and his puppy gets killed, and
Yes.
you have to bite your lip and say, who's Keanu Reeves going to be today? And then he comes out and becomes the world's greatest assassin. And 4 movies later, you believe it. But at that beginning of that movie, you're like, no, he's just pretending. But he goes into a wreck of a house, goes into his bedroom, and he bangs on all the concrete, lifts up a trapdoor, and it's full of guns and Kevlar and all sorts of machine guns, everything. And that's my career now going into finding myself again with the Red Queen's hypothesis. So I don't have to prove who I am and what I do. I've already got all that stuff. It's just a case of cherry picking where I need to be. But for me, it's not about being the star. I've done it. I grew out of it. It's about being the mentor. I use my time to help people to become industry icons so they're going to help themselves grow bigger and better than they ever were before by moving to be the best in their industry or being recognizable in their industry. Don't be necessarily like a Kardashian where you're famous for being famous. I don't think that's easy to sustain. But if you're very good at what you do and you're invisible, I show people how to position yourself so everyone pays attention using the skills of social media, writing a book, podcast, live events, growing a community, all the things that makes you famous amongst your peers, and then turning it into revenue streams. And that's it. I've taken about 10 minutes of your time.
No, this is very interesting. We're gonna dig deep into it more. So pretty much, basically, you took the avenue or the path of, you said, "Hey, I want to reinvent myself, but I don't have to kind of prove myself to nobody. I'm gonna cherry pick." You said so, but so what you done? You flipped the script around and say, "I'm gonna help others. That's what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna help others to be in the right path, to motivate others. To kind of not just shed the light on other people's talent." To help them pick up that talent and bring it to a next level, whether they are athletes, actors, corporate executives, people who wants to be motivational speakers like you. And because you pivoted and from being on radio and being involved in entertainment to a motivational speaker. Everybody said, "Hey, I want to be a motivational speaker. I know how to speak." and it's not an easy gig. And in one of your interviews, I also heard you said a lot of the people who, some of the greatest achievers out there in the world, not the greatest speakers, but people still listen to them and follow them and look up to them.
You know why? Because nowadays, with social media, um, movie stars, pop stars, TV stars are not rock stars anymore. Sports stars are because they've got a shelf life, but the real rock stars nowadays are the business leaders. That's what people gravitate towards. That's what people see. The ability to earn money by doing that stuff. So, like an album or a single that would come out during our day, you see all the awards behind you, which I haven't seen yet, but congratulations. Are you on one of those pictures there, by the way?
I'm not there. I was involved. I was involved in a lot of the productions. Yes, I was
Wonderful. So I
involved.
was going to say you've lost a
Yes.
bit of hair just like me since then as well. But um, I think that in the days when you would produce an album or a hit single, nowadays that's an app, or it's a
Yes.
community, or it's a new strategy, or it's a leadership book. I think that is a new way of looking at the singles and the hits and the movies and the stuff. I mean, the movie industry is changing so dramatically. In fact, have you come across Real Shorts?
Real shorts. Yes.
That's the most fascinating business model that I've seen for a long time.
Well, it
When
started from TikTok, and then it carried out to everybody else.
Absolutely. So when the movie industry is dying and it moves over to TV, and I think we saw that happening during 24. You know,
Yes.
when the TV show 24 came out, the box set meant you could be absorbed in Jack Bauer's world forever until you just really actually had to have a shower and talk to your family again. And what Real Shorts allow you to do is the TikTok framing of 70 episodes of 1 minute each, all written like the bold and the beautiful. So you're wondering what's going to happen next. And that has allowed people who are just out of work actors but maybe recognizable to get a new industry that arrives on your phone, and it's rivaling Hollywood for the amount of money that's passing through it. I think it's going to go crazy and get bigger and bigger, and I'm really glad because as a medium, movies started to die badly in favor of the Netflix system and so on. But I think this is a new way to reach people, which is really creative and fantastic. I think new media is really important.
Yes, absolutely. You know, you said one thing which is absolutely on point. The new celebrities and the new people, or the newest stars, are the new successful entrepreneurs. These are the tech guys. The age don't matter. Could be the Jeff Bezos, where the whole world went crazy, like royalty wedding the other day, or it could be just some young entrepreneur who came up with an app and sold it for a couple of $1 billion, or created an app that's worth $50 billion.
And one of the things that's really strange about it, and I guess that if we took a helicopter view, you've been in entertainment for a very long time. I've been in it a long time as well. I mean, the heroes that we have right now are not necessarily good guys with good values. And if we were to take an overview about rock and roll music, maybe the same is true for that. The guys that we admired many, many years weren't necessarily amongst the kindest or the most generous or the most benevolent of people. They were just driven by what they do and what they had. That's a typical rock and roll lifestyle, trashing the room and throwing the television out the window. So maybe it's just human nature that we're just seeing a different spin on right now.
In your journey so far and teaching other young, I would say, hungry entrepreneurs who wants to be a great speaker, what makes a good speaker or great speaker? You know,
I think
genuinely, everybody say, yeah, I can speak, I can motivate. Is it really that or not really? You know,
no,
to
it's
do
not. It's
that,
not
you
true.
have to have certain criteria that, I don't know, something that you gain throughout your journey, or something you study for, or something had to be talented, you know, like a talent given to, like a great singer, or great pianist, or great, you know, music producer, something
I,
that
I
you have
don't.
the knack for.
I don't think it's talent driven. I think talent is something you can learn and you can grow on. But I think the skill sets that you get from being able to practice it and know what you're going to do is going to make that big difference. I've worked with so many speakers Most of the speakers I work with are terrible. I'm not talking about working one to one. I host a lot of big events. So I work with the Vatican, I do Davos and World Economic Forum, I do Leap in Saudi, I do GITEX in Dubai, a lot of tech events, the world's biggest tech events I host. And most of the people I see speaking on stages are really bad speakers, but because there's a wow factor about when you look at their CV, everyone kind of lets them off with it. And I think that's a real shame that they haven't raised their game. But you see, if you're a CEO of a company and everyone claps every time you finish speaking, why should you bother learning to get better at it? You know, because everyone's going to clap and nobody tells you, boss, you were terrible because they like getting paid and having a roof over their heads and feeding their families. So I think there's a massive gap that's going to change with the nature of AI itself. Because I think leaning into your humanity is the way that you deal with the automation of everything. And so communication skills are a massive element involved in that. And so, for instance, 70% of inventions never see the light of day because the inventors are unable to share what they've created with a potential spokesperson or financial investor. So it dies with them. Can you imagine how the world would be different with that? And I see it all the time. I think that the key to it is, first of all, getting the Wi Fi code of your audience. And also, not to. It's like, for instance, we talk about being a speaker. I say to people, I don't want you to ever speak. I don't want you to ever give a presentation for the rest of your life. What I want you to do is have a conversation with your audience. It feels different. It's chilled out. You just don't let them speak too much. But when you go out there and you say, I'd like to share some ideas with you, and if it's time at the end, you can let me know what you think. But it's going to be interactive, and I hope you enjoy it. I'm going to start with this. Put your hands in the air. How many people couldn't find car parking on the way here? Hands in the air. So now it's a two-way conversation. Whether you're letting them speak or not doesn't make any difference. And so what it does is audiences are not there to judge you. That's where people have a massive fear of public speaking. Oh, they're going to hate me. I'm going to be humiliated. I'm going to look stupid. They don't care. They just want something out of the time that they're spending with you. They want to know that you are going to give them the best time, the best information, and they've got some actionable content that they can leave and go with. So that they look at you to see if you're congruent. So if I look you up on Google and you says you've done all this stuff and ChatGPT has given me a couple of things that you talk about, is that what you're going to deliver? Because what people will do is they don't easily walk out in the middle of a conference or in the middle of a presentation, but they go on holiday in their heads while watching you. And so you've got to make sure that you do engage the audience, and it's very easy to do. You ask them rhetorical questions at every stage, and you break it down so it's a two-way conversation, and you train them, or they will train you. And another thing that people do is they get really nervous about it, and that's why it's so important to make it a conversation, not a judgeable presentation that people are looking at you thinking, oh, who do you think you are? When you make it honest and you make it a presentation, you can think in real time because you're relaxed. So if you get things wrong, you can turn around to them. And I have at many stages, I'm talking about something and I go off on a tangent because somebody asked me a question or I thought of another thing that's relevant. And I'll stop and I'll go, I have no idea where I was. What was I talking about? And they'll say to me, "You were talking about that." I go, "No, no, no, it wasn't. I was. What else was I talking about? This." And sometimes they'll say, "You know what? I can't remember what it was. It will come back to me. Let's move on anyway." And at no point do they say, "You've cheated us. You're rubbish. You're not very good." Because they're on a journey and a conversation with me. And that happens when you're talking with people, not at people, with people. And it's a very fundamental part of creating relationships with an audience. There's lots of tricks and techniques like being able to get people to, you can tame an audience and get them to eat out your hands in 7 seconds. And you can also guarantee that an audience will clap for you when you finish. I mean, you've seen conferences. How many times have you seen people stop talking and look at the audience? The audience is still staring at them, and they walk off almost sideways like a crab, hoping that a big thunder cloud will appear that takes everyone's attention away. I'll share with you, if you don't mind, Bob, the way that I'd like
Yes,
to put an
absolutely.
audience
Absolutely.
together.
This is very intriguing and insightful for myself and for our audience at Entrepreneurs in Tech. Yes.
So I'm going to share with you when I go to an audience, I don't start talking until I'm right in the center stage because I don't want to talk and meet people miss me. So I don't know who's talking. I get into the center of a stage, and when I'm ready, I'll say, so if it's morning, I'll say, good morning, everybody, good morning. And they'll go, ooh. I was like, come on, you can do better than that. Good morning, everybody. Good morning. And they say, good morning. I say, thank you so much. My name is Dave Crane. I'd like to share with you a number of things. So that's about 7 to 9 seconds. Now, what did I really do there? First of all, I said it 3 times. Now, when I say good morning, everybody, good morning, I know I could say good morning, everybody, or just good morning, but I'm trying to teach them to sing a song back to me called the good morning song, or good afternoon, or good evening. So it's a very simple thing to answer back to me. So, good morning, everybody, good morning. They're thinking, why has he said that twice? Some people say good morning back, but what most people do is they go, ooh. Why is that still good? Because I'm not actually saying good morning. What I'm actually saying is, Dave's here, put your phone down, finish your conversation, stub out your cigarette, put your coffee cup down. We're going to do some stuff. Then the second line is, come on, we can do much better than that. Now, that line is incredibly important because I'm now breaking the fourth wall. I'm now saying this isn't a keynote. This is a two-way conversation. We can do much better than that. And by saying it like that, it also says I'm prepared to keep doing this until you join in properly. So then they also know, oh, this is a guy who doesn't do what everyone else does. He's actually talking to us. And then I go back to the beginning again. I say, good morning, everybody. Good morning. And I raise my hands as I do that. So that means that I'm almost grabbing the energy of a room and lifting it up. And so I get a big good morning back on the back of that. Why is that important? Because it means that everybody in the room has showed me the level of engagement that they will do. So later on, when I talk and I'll say, okay, so this is why it is that social media is going to change in the next 5 years. Does that make sense? And everyone goes quiet. I say, does that make sense? Yes. And I can gauge what I did at the very beginning to see the level of whether they're into it or not. They'll never go higher than they were at the very beginning. But if I keep doing that all the way through until the very end of a presentation, then I know they were with me for the journey. I won't just finish and go, da-da, and they'll go, nothing. So I know they're with me because they'll tell me if they weren't. So
So
does that
what
make
do you?
sense? So
No, I mean it makes a lot of sense. So what are you saying? It's really very important that to engage, not just engage by them listen, let them speak back at you, to create that conversation. And I notice not a lot of speakers do that. Only a handful. I get you are one of them. And I think even sometimes I do come across Tony Robbins, and he does that a lot. He engages a lot with his audience. He doesn't stay in one place. He walks around, goes to the aisles, down the stage. He invites people. He have conversation. He talks to them during his speech. So he keeps everybody focused and really 100% engaged in what is he saying. And to just not just to observe and understand, to also make them part of it.
absolutely. And he's a
Yes.
master of it. And that's the key thing. And then I'm going to share with you how you guarantee the audience will clap even if you sucked at the end of your presentation. Do you know how you do this?
How?
You say, you've been an amazing audience. Give yourselves a massive round of applause. And you
You're
get them
being
to clap for
motivated.
themselves. So you're
Yes.
clapping for them. You're not saying, was I good? Because they might not like you. You might not, you might say, did you learn something? They might not have learned anything. But you say, you've been an amazing audience. Give yourselves a massive round of applause. They start clapping. The ripples of clapping happens around the room. And the 4 or 5 seconds it takes for the room to catch fire with the clapping, because you've got them in a trance state during your entire presentation, then you can walk off the stage and wave, and it's done. Now, what this means is for every speaker who's paid attention to this presentation, if you can get everyone to eat out the palm of your hands at the beginning of a session, and you can guarantee they're all going to clap at the end of it, then as long as you're not killing kittens or doing something ridiculous in the middle of your presentation, you know what you're going to get out of that presentation. And for everybody who's watching, including the organizers, they will say, you were the best presenter. Nobody else got a round of applause. And they didn't realize that you told the audience to applaud themselves.
Now, when you, let's say, you're doing a speech or I call it, let's say, a motivational speech to a bunch of high level corporate executives. In their head, like, listen, I'm out there, so get straight to the point. I don't need you to motivate me. I'm already motivated. How do you come around to that mindset they have, where you really get them more humble and engaged? It's like, wait a second, I know what to do. I know how I'm going to get around and bring them in, because they might be sitting and there's a glass here, when they come in and they want to listen to you. See what you have to offer, what you have to bring as a speaker, a motivator, people, somebody like who are able to read people.
It's a great question. There's two answers for it. First answer is short and sweet, and you probably won't like the answer, but I know you'll smile. So, how do I get them motivated? I've got a really high end group of people in the room. Have I already been paid? Yes, in which case I don't care. Now, that doesn't mean I don't do my job properly, but it does mean that I'm not there to prove to everybody, you must love me. I'm there to deliver content that we've already vetted. I mean, Noah's going to be there. Now, here's the longer answer, because I do care. That sounds flippant, but I've already been paid. That's very important. And I say this because I'm sure in your industry as well, and everyone who's watching this, do you get paid after you've done your delivery? Or should you get paid in advance? I get paid in advance. Big difference. So your audience, you do the hard work. You work out who they are. You ask the questions of the organizers. What's the demographics that are going to be in a room? Are they doctors who are amongst the hardest people to please? Doctors are used to people coming in and diagnosing horrible diseases that's going to kill them in 2 weeks, and they've got to keep a straight face and they've got to look after the person in the room. Try and motivate those guys, and it's really difficult. I remember doing one event for a big health event, and I finished my keynote and they clapped and it went down quite well. And I walked off stage and I turned to the organizer and I said, well, I think they liked it, but I'm not quite sure. He said, you're kidding me. He said, they loved it. They normally walk out in the middle of everything. He said, that's the most animated I've ever seen them. So that's your doctors. But equally so, you could have, like, I do a lot of events in tech. So techies tend to be, a lot of techies are decision makers now because the CEOs or the CIOs have flopped. In fact, not many CIOs become CEOs, funnily enough, because that's not their skill set. But they tend to be so techy, they're terrible at audiences and terrible at public. So they'll give a really in depth presentation that nobody will enjoy or clap afterwards unless they're techies, in which case they've got everything. So when you're working with that audience, the best thing to do is to be yourself. Take them into your world while you cross over into theirs and deliver content that they really want. Your job as a motivational speaker, and I think motivational speaker is a really strange phrase because if you can make people have a great time and learn something, and they don't have to be happy afterwards, but they've got something emotional that's going to take them to a higher level as a direct result, you have motivated them anyway. So whether it's on your CV, you have become a motivational speaker. So when you've got this audience, you work out with the organizers what have they had before? Who did it last year? What were the results? What kind of things are going on in the industry? What are they worried about? What are their hopes and fears? You do your homework. You also go down and you look at the venue. You also, if it's a number of speakers or whatever are going on, you get the Wi-Fi code of a room. Do they react? Are they having a good time? Are they kind of slowed? Is it raining outside? Is it politics that's going to affect these guys? And so what you do is you've got a number of different factors that you put together. Your keynote presentation um, should be loaded so you can go fast all the way through and get to the end of it and they still get enough out of it, or you can slow it down, do it at a pace where they can individually interact with you, and if you have to have a false ending, it doesn't matter, you can jump ahead to it and finish off with a conclusion because they don't know what they haven't seen. But your job is to make their lives better as a result of that. And sometimes it depends. If you've got a room full of salespeople, they'll go crazy. They'll just enjoy everything and will participate to the point where you want to calm them down and you want them just to stop doing that so I can get to the end of. Your job is to get them something special. And we didn't mention it, but I'm actually a stage hypnotist as well. When I stopped doing radio, I became a hypnotherapist and life coach. I'm a business coach still now. And part of being a stage hypnotist is you control the room like a live film director. And so all the things I've mentioned now are things you can pre-prepare, but in real time you've got to deliver it. And so it's kind of like you have to pivot and you have to change. And the better you get at doing this, the easier it is to deal with audiences, because every audience you've had will remind you of other audiences that you've dealt with before. But sometimes you get really strange groups that are a challenge, and your job is to give them the very best that you can, and the best that you can is all you can hope for. And if it's been a case you've been given the wrong group, you should have found that out before you get in there. When you are there, you get them so that they've had the best time ever. And that's your job. That's why you're being paid.
Dave, this is all amazing. I want to know, and our audience want to know, somebody like you who came from the UK, was involved in the entertainment business, pivoted to kind of try a new career. How did you motivate yourself to motivate others? What was the mindset factor? What did you do to say, you know what, I'm going to help others? I'm good at this. I'm going to start. How did you kind of went to that path? And that's really kind of interesting. People don't want to hear sometime how physically and mentally, what did you have to go through to get yourself to do that? And everybody wants to see the end results. Nobody wants to see the road that you went through, that you've been through, the struggles, the mental struggles every day, waking up and motivating yourself. And that's what I want to do. I want to be good at that. People to listen to me, to follow me, to let me help others. What qualify me to help others? Yes, I've been in the entertainment business. I've done this. I come, but am I qualified? How did you get yourself into that stage?
That's a fascinating question, because that's really like unwrapping the entire ta-da, like in
Yes.
Scooby-Doo. And they take the mask. It's Old Man Rivers after all, and I would have got away with it, apart from you pesky kids. Um, well, here's the thing. I'm mixed race. So my dad was white, my mum was black. I grew up in white areas in the UK. In England at first as a little boy, and then we moved to Scotland for a number of years until I was in my early teens, and then moved back to England. And at every stage, I had to justify who I was because I didn't see any black people anywhere. People of color, very rare in those days in the 70s and early 80s in the UK. It changed a lot later. So I had two choices. You make people laugh or you learn to fight. So you either become their friend or you take them out to the point where nobody wants to mock you. And I was a small guy. I still am now. I'm not a fighter. I'm a lover, baby. I'm probably not a very good lover either. But what I did realize is you you get the Wi-Fi code of people you meet as you talk to them. You work out from all the body language and what they say, and they ask you, and the way that they approach that relationship. Are they friend or foe or indifferent? And that ability, when amplified, becomes my ability to work an audience of 50,000 people and have them eating out the palm of my hands for 3 days easily when I do these events in any country. But at the same time, it allowed me to know that I had the ability. And I didn't think about it like that. It was survival, really, when I was young. I mean, when you're a teenage boy and you're trying to get a girlfriend, you're not point at no point you're thinking I've got this power. You're just thinking I want a chick, and so you use every skill you've got to try and get somebody interested in you, and so on and so forth. My entertainment side, I think, spilled out of just that whole ability to want to perform for audiences. Because if you see, I can't blend in. If we're in a group of people, I can't blend in. They'll notice I'm there, and rather they notice me because I chose for that to happen, rather than they choose to ignore me because I get ignored completely. And there's a lot of people of color or diversity or anybody who's been through that choice. It was not really a choice because it just happens to you, but you can choose to do something about it. You don't have to deal with anything. So I kind of grew up as an entertainer. I didn't realize until after my dad had passed from COVID, when I talked to my mum, that I'd been an entertainer at the age of 11 and had come second in a talent competition that was the equivalent of Scotland's Got Talent. It wasn't on TV, but it was done in theatres all around Scotland on tour, and I was the young lad singing. And my mum said that my dad had said that he didn't want me to be an entertainer because it was too difficult to deal with the politics in the industry. When I came second, there were people saying horrible things about me, and it was really jealous and all the rest of that stuff. And actually, I should have won it, and it sounds arrogant to say it, but I was an 11-year-old for a show that was meant to go on the road. because that had stars in it. If you're an 11-year-old, they can't take you on the road. You've got to go at school legally. So the woman who won had to be somebody that they could then put all over posters and take on tour and do stuff. So my dad took his foot off the gas and never tried to train me as an entertainer, but I had it in my blood, and so I wanted to join a band when I moved from Scotland down to England. And nobody at my school had an interest in it, and so I became a DJ. One of my friends was a DJ, so I started DJing in clubs. And I grew up listening to Radio One in the UK, which is was their number one station. And I heard the DJs going live on stage with pop stars and audiences, and that got me really interested in the concept of maybe that's your calling. And so, what's driven me all the way through to be able to become a mentor is, as I said at the beginning of today's session, I got to the point where I'd achieved that. I'd been on stage in front of thousands of people, I'd grab a microphone, and when I became a stage hypnotist, people would come to see me even as a motivational speaker. And here's the thing about being a motivational speaker. Can I share with you just where that came from, how I became one in the first place?
Please do. Everybody wants to know. I want to know personally.
So when you're a DJ, you play music until you're the last person that leaves the
Correct.
building. And when you settle down with the wife and kid, you don't want to be there anymore. The music doesn't matter that much, and the girls are going off with everybody else. And you've got to drive home and get up early to take your kid to school. Rubbish job for an older guy, great job for a youngster. So um, I wanted to get out of that, and I also didn't want to be on the radio anymore because of the politics and lots of other reasons. So I thought, well, what can I do as a cabaret, as an entertainer, that I could turn up and do and go, get paid the same as being a DJ, do an act, and then leave. And I looked at different options. I was an okay singer. I was a great singer when I was a kid, but I hadn't learned any instruments, so I knew that would be limited. And I looked at all the different magic. I didn't want to learn tricks. I don't want to be. Did you see that? But if stage hypnosis was real, I thought, okay, let's see how that works out. So I studied it, went to Vegas, trained to be a stage hypnotist, came back to Dubai, became a hypnotherapist and an NLP master practitioner, and I did shows all around the world. So I've done, world tours and things like that as a stage hypnotist. Sold out Dubai many times in the corporate market. But here's where it turns into motivational speaking. I remember doing a show one time, and a guy comes up to me who's like a kind of business friend, says, Dave, my team need to know when you do your show at the beginning, you talk about how your mind works, because then you get people interested to come on stage and experiment and take part in the show. But you explain everything. I said, yes. He said, can you come and explain that to my staff? I said, what, about how your mind works? He said, yes. I said, what, you want the whole show? He said, no, I don't want the show at all. I just want that bit because I'm running a sales team and they really aren't in the right space. So I said, yeah, I can do. How long do you need me to do? He said, about half an hour. I said, will you pay me the same money as doing a hypno show? He said, yes. And I went, bing, this is how it works. So I went in and started talking about how your mind works and getting paid to be a motivational speaker. And that developed into doing training and coaching and hosting events of the industry. And I think of a dream experience where I hypnotized the entire room and take them on a journey in their minds and all sorts of stuff. So that's what spilled in. But then it came to the point where um, I was coaching and mentoring people to be speakers up until the pandemic. So it was
Hmm.
working very well, happy days, all good. Then the pandemic came along, and for 2 years I had no work, no speaking gigs, no hosting gigs, no CEOs who needed training to be a great speaker because they weren't giving speeches anymore. My wife was a award-winning wedding photographer, no gatherings for 2 years. So it was really difficult to be able to then go get paid. We're in Dubai, it's not a cheap place to be. I've got rent, I've got school fees, I've got car payments, got two dogs, wife, kid to look after. So what do you do? And I thought, well, my wife had said to me before, don't be the star anymore because it's a race to the bottom financially. You need to get paid a certain level because you got a family to look after. But there's lots of people who want to get into the industry and they'll work for free just to get the video of them on stage. You can't compete with that. But become the mentor and train people. So think about it. When the rush hit America, the money was never made by the guys who were looking for gold. They're made by the guys that are selling the pans. So that's why I changed into becoming a mentor, show people how to do it. And so I mean, during the pandemic, I went live about 200 times. So if you're watching your screen now, I don't know if it can hear on a podcast, but I'll just show you the different sets that I can create that I learned to do. I've got it snowing now. There's a number of different things I can swap it. So I start talking about my presentations and the stuff I'm doing on LinkedIn. I can move through it all. I've got all this stuff set up. I can do a complete studio set from where my office is at home. And I realized that what I needed to be able to do was help the next generation to get to where they need to be. I didn't need to be a star, but I kind of do as well because you need to walk the talk as well as show people how to do it. So I realized that I didn't want to be like, who are my heroes? I grew up as a kid loving Elvis, Michael Jackson. Neither of those worked out too well. Who else did I really love at the time? But now Yoda, Obi-Wan Kenobi, anyone played by Morgan Freeman or Kevin Costner, they are the people that I am now because my job is to get the star to where they need to be and also keep in the game to prove that I'm still doing it, if that makes sense.
It does, absolutely. Dave, quick question. What is the difference between somebody motivated and somebody hungry? And who will
Ooh,
reach there faster?
it's an amazing question again. Motivated versus hungry. I think that motivated means that you're driven by a power that's greater than just wanting something to happen. So if you're motivated, it could be self-motivation because all motivation is self-motivation. It's an outside thing that's usually generating and stirring something inside you to want to step up your game. And so hungry is you really want it. But I think motivation might come from a more benevolent place. So maybe, just not always, but maybe you're motivated because you want something to happen that will make your dream, your way of giving to other people better. So as a motivational speaker, you don't stand there and say, I am great, because they're not very good motivational speakers. Being hungry is probably closer to influencers. So I'm hungry to be famous. I'm hungry to be well known. I'm hungry to make money. And some people are brilliant at doing it. And in the economy that we have worldwide right now with new media, being hungry to be famous can work out very well, can be very lucrative. But it doesn't necessarily mean that you're happy. If you're motivated and get what you want, then your motivation can still continue, but there's a level of satisfaction that goes with it. If you're hungry and you're still hungry and you haven't been satisfied, I mean, I think if you're hungry and you get what you want, you're done. You're not motivated to do it anymore. You've done it. But if you're hungry and you've got something, it's not necessarily something that gives anything to anybody else. Because what drove you was the thing that you had that was wrong inside you, or the gap that was missing that you needed to fill. And so I know lots of people that are both, that are highly motivated. I know lots of people that are hungry. Which wins? I think smart. I think whoever can work out a roadmap or get a mentor will get what they need fastest. And I think you've got to have some kind of hunger to do it. I mean, right now, have I got hunger to be famous? No, I don't care. If people recognize me, don't recognize me, want to be my friend, don't want to be my friend, that's more than fine. Am I motivated? Yes, I want the world to be better. I think we need some better leaders who are showing people the way to leave them better off than they were before you met them. And that's a really important thing for the gratitude that you have around the world. And also, for instance, if whoever I meet, I have to leave them better off than they were when I first met them. Whether it's somebody who carries my bags into the car from a supermarket, or somebody who puts petrol in the car, or whoever it is, even if you're in Starbucks and they come over and they give you a coffee and they say, thank you so much, you're doing a great job. Nobody says that, they just go, ugh. So that fact of going, oh, that was nice, it motivates them, makes them feel better, and they will pass that on to somebody else. So it's like a glass of water. If you've got a glass of water next to your bed and you leave it there for a day or two, it'll go stale. But if you pour that
Correct.
glass of water into a river, it will stay fresh forever because it circulates. So I think it's really important to look at motivation and hunger along those lines. What's driving you? How are you actually using a roadmap and what actions are you taking to do it? And also, how will you know when you've got it? I'm motivated to do everything that I'm doing until the day I die. But am I hungry for it? Well, it's become my way of life. But I'm not hungry to be famous, like I mentioned earlier. Otherwise, I'd do something completely different to get there. I'll get to where I need to be, and then when it's game over, that's it. And there was one thing I shared with my friends I met a couple of days ago, who were on the Blind Date show. When I was on that TV show, I was recognized the next day by everybody. Something like 20 million people in the UK, and it's got 70 million people in it, saw that show. It was ridiculous. So I went shopping the next day. It was filmed in advance, so to everyone's eyes, I was in Lapland on this date with this chick who picked me, who regretted it for the rest of her life. Until now, we're really good friends now. I'm still married. Um, so the next day, I'm in a shopping mall with some friends, and everybody recognized me. But when you're a celebrity, even for 5 minutes, they don't turn around and say, "Well done, that was amazing." They stare at you with a zombie stare, like, and they talk to other people and point out who you are, and you are suddenly like, a KFC when everyone's starving. Everyone's looking at you, and suddenly you become currency in a weird way. And it was scary and really horrible. It calmed down after the show had gone on TV, the second part when I came back, and everyone knew that I was a good guy and blah, blah, blah. And so after that, I could have decent conversations with people. But I can't even imagine what it would be like to be Will Smith or The Rock or even Jeff Bezos or even Donald Trump. Anybody that gets recognized, people have preconditions. Now, some
Yes.
people see their own narrative, so it's their own fault. I won't mention names, but you do have a public where nowadays taking a selfie with you is currency. And so, if you're sitting in a restaurant with your family, you will be inundated by everybody wanting to take a picture. And if you say no, suddenly you're the biggest a hole on the planet because I met that guy. He's not what you see on telly. He's really horrible. I wanted to take a selfie and he wouldn't do it. What was he doing? Well, he had a plate of French fries and he was eating one at the time. But even so, he was out in public. And that's why so many people do go underground. They do keep a really private life, and that's how they do it. And Johnny Depp used to be one of the most private people on the planet until the Amber Heard thing. And I don't think anybody was really surprised to find out he was a little bit weird and a little bit eccentric behind closed doors. And when his story came out, it was just like a freak show of who's the worst between these two people. But he never wanted the world to see it. He married Vanessa Paradis. He fought
Yeah.
with photographers so his children would never be in the papers. But when he was a kid, he got bullied at school. And this is something that happened to show his choice of movies until he did Pirates of the Caribbean 173, probably the latest one that comes out. He was being bullied by the kids at school, and his mum said, "If this bully comes back to you again, pick up the biggest rock he can handle and hit him with it." So I'm not saying people should do it, but he did
No,
it.
no.
And that was his attitude towards the movie industry. He did what he wanted and he wouldn't be bullied. And I suppose there's a lot to be said for that mindset.
We live in a world right now where there's so much influence, information, of negative, lot of negativity, and a lot of positivity. The race to AI, new entrepreneurs, new technology, uh, so much happening both sides. And I feel a lot of people these days, whether they're young entrepreneurs or age is only a number, older, younger, doesn't people in general of all ages are kind of there's so much being thrown at them. Where do I pay attention? Focus on a negative part, see if this is going to happen, I'll survive, or focus on how to thrive, how to help humanity, how to evolve. Technology is happening, the AI is coming. I want to be part of it. I want to be part of this evolution. It's going to help and advance humanity. And then negativity on the other side. Where to focus? How can we uplift people away from negativity to focus more on positivity?
I think that one of the skill sets that they don't teach people is how to be kind, leaving people better off than they were when you first met them, making sure that whoever they are, you say thank you and you wish them all the best. You don't have to hand over your money to somebody if you don't like them, but you can say thank you and walk away and bless them for being horrible and know that there's somebody else's problem. We kind of have got to a point right now where I think that the I think the chickens are coming home to roost. So without going down the big route of politics, we're finding a world that's really split. And the West has kind of come to the end of its empire and its civilization, where we used to rule everything, and we found that other parts of the world are now taking over. And it happens every 500 years. So it's not, shouldn't be a big surprise. We have plenty of time to prepare for it. And every empire only lasts for 150 years. There's six things that happen. Right now, America's at number six. Sorry, America's at number four. I don't remember the exact ones. It's a whole new story. But there's another two things that change it. It happens to Roman Empire, British Empire, Ottoman Empire. Everybody goes through the same thing. These things happen when the rich guys kind of like shaft the little guys, and that's the final part, final straw. So when we're going back to why is this happening and what can we do? When Mark Zuckerberg, put together his social media, and he was a genius putting together Facebook. He got his engineers, the coders together, and they said, "What can we do to make this as sticky as possible so people are obsessed with it and they have to stay on it?" And they thought, well, what we're going to do is we're going to drive fear and anger. So when you read something that shocks you, you go, "Oh my goodness!" And then what happens is the algorithm gives you more of it, and you've got to keep watching it. And then you click on something and see more stuff. Oh my! And now it's all generated by AI. And suddenly, from the point of view where you're kind of not that interested, fake news is taking you on a journey where you can't get out of the rabbit hole. There's a really interesting documentary, again, I can't remember the name off the top of my head, where the guy who's top engineer from Twitter, and there's, I think, what else, TikTok, and a number of the big hitters, Facebook definitely, and so on, they're all apologizing to camera that they had the wrong angle for programming social media. Now imagine Mark Zuckerberg was a different guy. Imagine that Mark Zuckerberg turned around and said, "Right, I want you to take Facebook and I want it to make the world happier. Make people happier with themselves, happier with other people." What a different world would be in right now. We wouldn't switch on social media and think it's toxic and know that there's AI fake news telling us that we're wrong and we're in danger all the time. We're not in danger all the time. You know, we live in a level of heightened worry. And one of the things that I learned to do, and I think it's very important that people have to do, is first of all, be kind to everybody else. Also, get the Wi-Fi code, understand how to communicate with people, get their Wi-Fi code, learn to read them, profile them, so you can leave them better off than they were before. But as you're doing all this, create an ecosystem around you that makes you happy. Now, happy doesn't mean that you've got to be, "Oh my goodness," because right now, I mean, if you got 200 life coaches onto the show and interviewed them, and you said, "How many people have studied happiness?" They'd all put their hands up. And so they're all happiness coaches, and so there's a metric which is the happiest country, which is the happiest company to work for, and I think it's the wrong metric. It's not about happiness. I'll tell you what I think it should be about. It should be about contentedness. Let me illustrate. So when you're driven by happy, and that falls into the hungry conversation we had earlier. So you're watching TV, and on your TV, you've got a guy on a yacht. He's surrounded by all these supermodels and pop stars. He's drinking champagne. The sun's going down, and he's just the best music, the best DJ. And you're watching it, and he goes, "Oh, that would have, if I only could be there, that would make me happy." There's no chance of you getting there. Probably AI anyway, but there's no chance. So you're thinking, "Oh, I thought I was happy, but that's really happy." So there's gradients of it. But what you can do then is you say, "Well, what would make me in my own skin? Let I'm gonna see what's on Netflix. Oh, look, this is a really fun show. I like this. It's got action. It's funny. It's got Arnold Schwarzenegger, Fubar. Watch that. I'm going to make myself a sandwich. So I'm going to make myself a cheese and ham sandwich. Lovely. I've got that now. And a cup of tea or a beer. I'll have a beer. I've got beer. I've got a ham sandwich. I've got an action movie. And you know what? I'm not on that yacht, but I am content in my living room for the time now." So when you're happy, you have to have happy when it's great, and you've got to have sad when it's not, or anger when it's even worse, and then happy and ecstatic. What if you didn't chase happy? What if you just chased content as a default setting? So if you don't get what you want, you go, "Well, what can I get out of it? I'm still breathing." I mean, after COVID, breathing is now a currency. We never thought it would be. It was just a right, but not everybody had it. So if you could be content every single day and you drive it every single day, then by the end of your life, you've had a good, happy life. Because when you
Well,
have a bad day, you ask better questions, snap out of it. And I think that that is what the world needs to consider more. But nobody's going to drive that because it's not exciting and it doesn't make
no.
any.
And the message right now for being content, it means that you're being lazy, you're not hungry, you're not motivated, and you just accept anything. And that's the negative message that everybody kind of translating of being content, and which is wrong, because sometimes being content could be that equals happiness. And in the end of the day, we all thrive for happiness. That's what we want. Everybody wants to be happy. Everybody says, I want a peace of mind. I want to be happy.
Exactly. And one
Yeah.
day it all ends. So what would you
Yes.
like to be like? With full of regrets because you didn't get what you needed? I remember an interview with the richest guy in the UK, and it was going back about 10 years. And so he's the richest guy in the UK, owns lots of buildings, lots of companies, and he says what people don't realize is I can only eat 3 meals a day. I can only drive one car a day. I can only sleep in one bed at night, and I can only do a handful of things in the 24 hours that I have. So when I'm doing this, yeah, it's great quality food, beautiful car, and gorgeous house I'm living in. But I am also stressed all the time for my employees to make sure they're happy, that they don't want to leave, that all they get fed, and I make business decisions to make sure the company's thriving and all the rest of it. My managers below me go home to their family and they can just chill out. I'm the boss. I've got to keep it going. So he said, when people think I'm so jealous, he's super rich, he's got all these things, they don't know what comes of that sword. It's double edged. And I found that when I became a big celebrity, that it's not about that, it's being happy in your own skin. And if people don't like it, they can kiss it. That's fine as well.
Dave, what an amazing interview and discussion. Really, I mean, we could probably go on for hours, actually, and I'm enjoying it myself. Before to say goodbye to this, really, I enjoyed it, and it was definitely an honor and pleasure to have you on the show.
Same here.
Um,
Thank you.
a quick advice to our younger generation, between all the mess out there, what's a good and a simple advice you can give them? A lot of these younger people are motivated, they want, and they don't know where to turn. Should I go to school? Should I forget about school? School is no good. No, I should be independent. I should do my own thing. Should I education? Forget about education, a waste of time. There's so many messages out there, especially online on the internet. Everybody put in their own 2 cents and say, hey, follow this. This is the way.
Wow, this is an incredible question. And unfortunately for you, I might not have a simple answer, but I've not had a simple answer to anything so far. So I'm sure you realize that was probably going to come. Well, I've got a saying which is jump and grow wings on the way down, which means take calculated risks. When I look at all the things I've ever done in my life, I took risks. Coming to Dubai could have been terrible, but I made a risk based on the fact I couldn't live in the UK anymore. I had to go seek my fortune, and if it failed badly, I'd come back again, but luckily it didn't. So, first of all, take calculated risks all the time. It keeps you alive, it keeps you thrilled, and most other people stay inside their comfort zone. That's not where the magic is. The comfort zone is there, and it doesn't work anymore. So therefore, I grew up with a lie, and I'm sure it's true for you as well, Bob, that you go to school and you work really hard, you get a qualification as a degree, and you'll get a job for life. You can start a family, and then everything works out fine. But that whole school system was developed to get the agricultural age into the industrial age 200 plus years ago, get people out of the fields and into factories. That's why they had them all at the same age. That's why they had to be good at maths and English and all these other things. If you look at the friends you have right now, how many of them are exactly the same age as you? They're not. That's because life doesn't work that same way. So if you get
No.
your degree, AI has changed it now. So 30% of the feeder jobs that people would get going into from university graduation are now done by AI. So if you're a junior in an office, stack those papers, write up all the stuff you need to do, feed it into this computer, and we'll see how you get on in at the end of the day. Well, you don't need somebody to do that. AI is doing it. So it's really difficult to get into that position now. So young people have a massive dilemma. One of the things that's going to happen is people are going to have to live with more spare time. And it's really hard to see that being a possibility when the rich are getting richer, the poor are getting poorer, and the middle class is disappearing everywhere. There's less of a comfort zone or a buffer or people who want to help you out. But you do need to then see about contentedness rather than happy. See about the fact that maybe if you've got a car or you can get there by feet, it doesn't matter as much. But what it does leave you with is the knowledge that there are loads of things you can do. I've got a 14-year-old Maya. She's a really cool chick, and I don't plan to send her to university for two reasons. One of which is I went to university and it was a waste of time. I studied law. I wanted to work. When I was brought into the careers office, the careers officer said, "What do you want to do?" I said, "I want to be famous. I want to work on TV and radio." And she looked through the book. In the days there was no internet, and she went, "Don't have that. Choose something else." So I chose law because it made my parents happy, and I wasted their money, and I wasted about 3 years of my life, and then spent another 10 years feeling guilty about the whole fact it didn't work out very well. So for my daughter, I don't plan to send her to university because the other reason is I wanted to start earning as soon as possible. Doesn't have to make any money, but start thinking about how money works, how you do that. Because I think that skills of social media, new media, the ability to market and communicate effectively, and the ability to ask yourself better questions is all you need. Yeah, of course, you can do your law degree later or you go to night school, but AI will fill that gap. I can get my phone now to read the UAE, Dubai law or American law, and in a short amount of time, it'll be up to speed. Now, okay, it'll hallucinate and I wouldn't take it into court, but it would be able to do a lot. So I think for young people now, follow your heart. Work out what you really want to do. Don't beat yourself up too badly. Don't scold yourself when you get it right, and don't be too proud when you get it right because it could change. And don't beat yourself up too badly when it goes wrong. Go to bed happy you got the best out of 24 hours, and when you wake up the next day, think of it like you're in a game. Your life is a reality TV show. You can get power up by reading and by eating and being healthy, and you can go down the snakes and ladders by getting it wrong. But the next morning you wake up and there's a brand new episode of your show or your brand new chance to start the game again. And do that until the end of days. Be nice, be kind to everybody, but most of all, love yourself because nobody else has to.
Absolutely. Great
Okay.
advice. Be kind and love yourself. Absolutely. Well, Dave, really want to thank you for joining us here today at Innovate Present Entrepreneurs in Tech. You're definitely an entrepreneur and a great motivator and a realist. You kind of like, hey, you like to break things down. It's very interesting. Well, I want to say just be sure to connect with us for our audience on social media. Until next up, keep innovating and stay curious and take calculated risks.
Thank you so much, Bob.
Thank you again. If you enjoyed today's episode, make sure to share Innovate Presents Entrepreneurs in Tech podcast. And if you're joining us on YouTube, please like this video and subscribe to the channel. Until next time.